Hello there, everyone. There was a question asked on the Virtual Instruments Control Forum about how to set up an orchestral template with Logic 10 and VE Pro, just kind of the basics of setting it up. And since I'm kind of new at this myself and have kind of struggled through it in the last year or so, trying to kind of figure it out and everything, I thought I might just try to give everyone what I know so that maybe that'll help somebody that's just starting out kind of get a leg up. So it's really pretty simple. The method that I'm using is the one that's described by Jay Asher from East West, who contributes a lot to the VI Control Forum. And so I can't take any credit for developing this method of working with virtual instruments or setting up a template. This was really his idea, and I just borrowed it. I was previous to this, I was actually setting it up in a much more complex way using aux channels and everything. And I think this is really a lot simpler and makes a lot more sense if you're coming from kind of a traditional score reading background where you're used to seeing all the instruments in score order, and you're used to having one stave or track for each instrument. So essentially what you do is in Logic 10, as you can see here, now I like to put my sections in folders. So like I've got, because that way I can easily collapse a section and make more room here, but you don't have to do that. You could have everything, laid out just as tracks. But anyway, so what you do is I do it in score order, and basically you just have one track for each actual instrument in the orchestra. So here you can see piccolo, flute, oboe 1, oboe 2, and I'm using a Cinesamples template for this. So obviously every instrument is not represented here, but this is what I've got right now. So. So in essence, what you do then is insert one track for each instrument. So like you can see here. Okay, so and then we're going to go over to my slave, where I've got Vienna Ensemble Pro running. So we'll slide over here. So as you can see, I've got a setup in Vienna Ensemble Pro that mirrors what I have in Logic. So I think conventional wisdom says that it's better to have fewer instances of Vienna Ensemble and or contact or play running. The fewer the better, because that's easier on RAM and CPU and everything. But it turns out that apparently for Logic, it actually prefers having more instances with less in them. And so it's a little bit counterintuitive with Logic. Apparently with Cubase that's not the case, but with Logic it apparently is. So what Jay described doing was to have an instance of VE Pro for each instrument. So you can see here I've got piccolo, flute, oboe 1, oboe 2, down the line for each instrument. So that can lead to quite a lot of instances if you have a very full orchestral template. But one thing that I think is actually nice about it is that it's a very modular approach. So instead of having like your whole string section maybe in one Vienna Ensemble instance, you've actually got each instrument separated out, so you can take away things or add in things as needed. So I think it's actually a pretty modular, easy to use approach, and it just makes sense because you can look at it and see basically a score page represented here in Vienna Ensemble, just like you have here in Logic. So you have kind of a one-to-one relationship there. Okay, so the question is, how do you do all your articulations? Okay, so for each instrument, obviously, you're going to have different patches that represent the different articulations, legato, pizzicato, whatever, whatever the instrument is. So here you can see, let me collapse this so you can see what I've got. So basically in each, so this is one instance of Vienna Ensemble Pro and Contact. This is oboe 1. And so what I've done is just put in all the oboe articulations that I have. And so you only need a stereo instance of Contact for this. You don't actually have to use the multi-output, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be switching, using channel switching between these different patches. So only one of these is going to be active at a time. You know, when you open up a patch in Contact, it automatically assigns it to successive MIDI channels. So you can see there it's on MIDI channel 1, and the next one's on MIDI channel 2, and it'll just do that for you automatically. So anyway, so basically you load in your articulations for each instrument. You only need one stereo output, like you can see here. And then when we connect to that instance here, so we'll go back over here and look at oboe 1, and we've got a Vienna Ensemble instance here that's connected, and so we're connected to Cinestrings oboe 1 here. Okay, so the question is, so obviously that will work, and it will automatically play on the first channel, so we get legato. So the question is, how do you switch between the different articulations? And the way that you do that, Logic does not have built-in articulation mapping like Cubase does. So what we have to do in Logic is there's a third-party plugin made by Audio Grocery, a little indie developer, and it's a really great little MIDI FX script that goes into Logic, and it allows you to switch between the different articulations. So you can see here I have them lined up, and they match what we have here. So legato, eighths, quarters, halves, sustains, half step trills, whole step trills, and then you see that same setup mirrored here, one for each channel. So basically you just install the Audio Grocery Logic, I think it's called Logic Pro Toolkit. Install it, and then the setup, it seems a little complicated at first, but it's actually pretty easy. He has videos on his website that'll show you exactly how to do it, so I won't go into detail here, but basically you open up the script in the editor, and for my simple channel switching setup that I have here, really all you have to do is type in the different names that you want to give to the articulations here, and then hit run script, and then if you're doing it with key switching, which is what I use with a separate controller, you just select that. You can also select control change. I've been thinking about setting this up with Lemur and an iPad, and just having like buttons for each articulation, but I haven't gotten there yet, so I'm going to try that next. But for now, I'm just using key switching with a separate MIDI keyboard. And then you just have a minimum and maximum key switch note. And so I set these just to prevent any possible confusion, and to keep so I can have the same key switches, the same key switch range for every instrument. I set it way down here on the -2 octave. And so you basically just need to set up a minimum and maximum key switch note so that it gives you enough room for all your articulations. And then it will basically automatically mirror it for you. So when I go over here to my keyboard and hit, F sharp, then see it switches to whole step trills. And so now I've got trills, whole steps. So that's really all there is to it. And there's much more complicated ways you can set up the scripts here for multi-timbral instruments and things like that. But for my needs right now, that's just not necessary. So I just went with the simplest route. But um, anyway, so it's really a pretty simple setup. It's not really as complicated as it seems at first. And what's beautiful about it, I think, is that it really lets you see your tracks like they would appear on a score. So to me, this is a more natural way to write music than having, you know, 20 oboe articulation patches out here and switching in between tracks, you know, for all that stuff. All my oboe one stuff is on one track. All my violin one stuff is on one track. So for me, I think that's a lot easier to read and see, and it makes it much more compact on the screen. I can fold all the woodwinds up and go to strings or whatever, and easily be able to switch back and forth between things. And if you set up your key switches to be mostly on the same, like in the same order. So, for example, like here you've got oboes. If you go to flute, I've got it in the exact same order. So legato, eighths, quarters, halves, sustains, half step, and whole step trills. So, and I use the same key switches for those. So it kind of becomes second nature after a while to switch between these different articulations for different instruments. Now, obviously, for different sections, different types of instruments, you're going to have things in strings that you wouldn't have in woodwinds, of course, and things like that. But in general, you can kind of use the same set of key switches for all the instruments. And what's even cooler about this is if you own a lot of libraries, you can add in, you can mix and match things. So you can have cinesamples, flutes mixed in with Vienna flutes, mixed in with, something else, and switch between them. Well, maybe not Vienna because you're not using contact, but at the very least, you can use any contact instrument or any, mix and match. I suppose there might be a way to do it if you're switching between contact and play. I'm not really sure how to do that, but, you could probably ask the developer if that's possible. But in any case, that's how I do it, and it works pretty well for me so far, and I'm pretty happy with this setup. So hopefully that helps somebody else. I'm sorry, I know this is not a very elegant presentation. I'm not really a very good speaker, so there's lots of ums and ahs. I apologize, and I know the sound quality is not the greatest. I'm just doing this through my iMac mic, so I apologize if this has been a chore to listen to. Anyway, hope this helps somebody. Thanks, guys. Bye.